Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, January 31st, and this week, Waymo expands, Tesla goes full self-driving, and Uber faces the FTC. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Bryant, happy rainy Friday.
Happy rainy Friday, Jared. It's good to be here. We're getting a little sunshine that's peeking through.
Oh,
So
yeah, look at that. I can see outside my office here, a little sun. That's great. It's great to see. It was brutal coming into work this morning. It was pouring. If you're in Chicago, you know all about it. Slick roads also equal dangerous roads. So, obviously drive safe out there.
yeah, be careful. Be careful for sure.
Yeah, so we're gonna jump right into it. The usual suspects, of course, this week. The first one we're hitting is Waymo, which is entering more cities. Now, this is from TechCrunch, and they reported, quote, Waymo plans to start testing its autonomous vehicles in 10 new cities this year, starting with Vegas and San Diego, according to The Verge. However, this doesn't mean the company will launch commercial operations in any of these cities or even test them in autonomous mode. Waymo told Verge it will send less than 10 AVs to each city. Well, they will be manually driven. Waymo, as most know, is already operating a commercial robotaxi service in Phoenix, San Francisco, and LA, with plans to launch in Austin, Atlanta, and Miami this year. What's interesting about this, Brian, is I kind of now understand how this business is working and the process is working. So it seems like, and maybe this is what's giving them the advantage, they take the cars to the cities, they actually have human drivers drive them to map it, and then uses that to learn the driving. So that's a very different approach than, let's say, what Tesla's doing or even Cruise or some of the others.
Yeah, no, I was actually encouraged by reading this article about how they're going through the process of vetting the cities, making sure that they're prepared before launching and dispersing autonomous vehicles out on their own. A lot of these other companies are just kind of dropping off cars and it's kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
They're not mapping the city in this way. They're not learning the different caveats, the different intricacies of each city and the city streets and various traffic patterns that they're going to see. So to watch them go out there, put these 10 vehicles on the road, map it out, get a lay for the land, it's better than it could be. I'm still concerned that when the autonomous vehicles get out there, that those vehicles themselves wouldn't have the quote unquote experience of the intricacies, but they'll certainly have the data that's been collected by the human drivers, and it's a good start. So I guess to put a bow on it, I'm encouraged that they're not just dropping a bunch of autonomous vehicles on the road, that they're trying to slow roll it a bit and take some necessary precautions to make sure that it's safe.
Yeah, like I said, I was actually encouraged by this, and it is different, and we're going to get into this in a second, versus someone like Tesla. So yeah, so it makes sense. Obviously, as we discussed and you discussed, it's still even mapping out the city, things change. They had construction, there's accidents. So I'm glad they're doing it safely, but obviously it's not going to be perfect. As again, last week we talked about the Uber CEO saying, how much error are you willing to take? But I definitely, it's better, like you said, it's better than it could be. So I think that's great.
Well, and I think just one thing, a lot of what makes it this self-driving car business in general, you have to understand that there are so many variations in the way that traffic works. So to put 10 cars on the road with 10 drivers for even 6 months and just circle around the city and learn different traffic patterns, that's great. But that's not going to give you all the data that you need about, like, for instance, what are areas of the city where people tend to jaywalk often, where there's people who are, you're in a business district, people are going to be looking down at their cell phones and kind of walking into the street from time to time. You need thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of data points to learn those very specific intricacies of city life and city living. So I hope that they do enough miles and go throughout the city enough to learn where the dangers really are. Because just to learn the map of the city, I mean, that's only a small part of the battle.
Right, right. And I mean, exactly. I couldn't agree more with that. And again, they need a lot of data. I mean, we don't know because it doesn't go in the article. I'm hoping they spend months. I'm hoping they get those millions of data points. And unfortunately, we'll know if they don't if we start hearing in the news that there's accidents. So it's one of those things where we just have to wait and see. Hopefully, it goes smooth and people are happy with it and Waymo works great. We don't want people to get injured, and obviously that's terrible. So we want the best, and hopefully they're doing it, which actually is a good transition into kind of the reverse story, our second story, which Tesla is announced that they are launching unsupervised driving starting in June. Now, this is from The Verge. They reported Tesla will launch an unsupervised, quote, no one in the car robotaxi service in Austin in June, Elon Musk said in earnings call Wednesday. The vehicles will be part of a fleet owned by Tesla and not customers' personal vehicles. Musk has previously promised Tesla customers would be able to add their own vehicles to a Tesla network for ride hailing. These will be available for paid trips and will arrive without anyone behind the wheel, Musk claimed. So here's a very different story, kind of going into what we just discussed. We just did a story last week that Tesla said that they are probably still a couple months away, or 6 months even, to having the full self-driving. And now they're saying, come June, the business is open, everyone. You can get in one and pay to get in one. To me, it feels reckless. I mean, that's just my initial thought on this.
Yeah, I agree. It feels reckless, and it feels like they've created some arbitrary deadline for themselves to put these cars on the road, whether they're ready or not. The fact that Tesla just recently said we're not quite there yet makes it, how do they know they're going to be there by June? And what happens if they're not? They've now put this out publicly that they're ready to launch. I know Elon likes to make a splash. He likes to do things in a really big, boisterous way. There's no way that they let this deadline pass without putting those vehicles on the city streets. They're just not going to pull back at this point. So, I hope that they're ready. I'm not confident that they will be, and if they're not, there's going to be repercussions. People are going to be injured. There's going to be disruptions in the traffic patterns. We've seen situations where emergency vehicles can't get through because autonomous vehicles are acting oddly. We've seen pedestrians be plowed over by these autonomous cars. So we know what happens when the technology is not right. And I pray to God that it is, because if they just push this out just because they've set some arbitrary deadline that they now need to meet, things could get really bad really fast.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. And like I said, we just last week they said that, that's less than 3 months away. They're saying 4 months. And, we just covered this, that they're saying we are, 6 months away from even really testing this thing. And that does concern me because we've seen the footage. Even a year ago, the Teslas just weren't stopping at anything and launching over ramps and hurting people or killing them. So, yeah, it's one thing when computers crash, as I said before. It's another when a computer in a car crashes. And so, there's lives at stake here. And you're right, though. I don't know of your personal opinion on this. I can't imagine these cities are going to be too overwhelmed by just approving these Teslas on the road. I can't imagine they're going to go, sure, do it.
Yeah, I think there are cities out there who want to be on the forefront. I don't know which ones are jumping at the bit right now to be the first ones with autonomous vehicles. I know out in California, there's a couple cities that are taking them on. But I think more importantly, we're seeing kind of the Uber rules all over again. These companies are just dropping the cars in, and they'll deal with the repercussions later. They're not asking for permission. I'm not even sure that they'll ask for forgiveness. They just are, they've decided they're going to do it. They've decided which cities they're going to go to. And then it's going to be on the city officials to figure out how to regulate them once they're there. We've seen this playbook before, and it was with Rideshare, 10 plus years ago.
Right. And, as we always say here, we'll see. And probably, June will be a very interesting month. That's for sure. I'm sure we'll be covering what's happening. Hopefully it's in the better side of things, but it could be the other side. Time will tell, as I often say. And our final story this week, Uber and Lyft have to respond to the FTC. And this is from Bloomberg. And they reported, quote, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is probing whether Uber and Lyft illegally coordinated to limit driver pay in New York City, according to documents reviewed by Bloomberg News. So-called civil investigative demands, which are similar to subpoenas, were sent to both companies in the final days of the Biden administration. The demands compel the companies to turn over information within 30 days about an agreement with New York City officials over how drivers are compensated. Uber and Lyft entered the agreement with New York City in June of 2024 to reduce rideshare lockouts that had resulted in reduced driver pay. So this is interesting. I feel like the plot just keeps thickening here with New York. So, and you can explain more if I'm incorrect here, but it sounds like they may have coordinated and say, hey, we're going to keep the prices. We're going to make sure the drivers don't get paid right, and here's how we're going to do the pricing. And they did it, kind of in coordination.
Yeah, well, that's what it seems like the FTC is alleging here, and it's going to be really interesting to see what these documents show. I would be pretty nervous if I was Uber and Lyft that the government is looking into these sorts of potential conspiracies because, it seems like they may have done something to try to price fix in New York. That seems to be a reason for the lockouts to begin with, to try to keep down the costs of this new minimum wage law. But oftentimes when government entities start looking at materials and documents and just corporate structures in general, they find other things. And I can tell you, just based on our years in this industry, there are a lot of ways that Uber and Lyft are cutting corners. And I don't know, how many ways they're breaking the law, if they are at all. But I certainly, if I were them, wouldn't want the government looking at all these documents and trying to figure out ways in which we may not be treating the workers in the right way. Because I think anecdotally, know that that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it says they only have 30 days to comply, so they don't have enough time to really try to hash out a plan or hide things, obviously, if there is anything. You're right, and like you said, this may uncover other things that they weren't even planning to see. So yeah, they said, the Uber spokesperson said, there never was an agreement deal with Lyft, and we were neither conspiring nor was our goal to limit driver pay. That's all they're really saying, which I'm surprised they even gave that statement. Usually they don't respond to anything. But yeah, this could be real bad news if they do uncover something. I mean, I feel like the fine for something like that has to be astronomical for both companies.
Yeah, I would think so. And I also think that there's going to be a lot of litigation here. I would be surprised if 30 days from now, Uber and Lyft have just handed over everything. They're going to be seeking to block some of these. They're going to ask for injunctions. They're going to say that the subpoenas are improper. There's going to be all sorts of delay mechanisms because I think that they understand what's at stake. And when you're starting to deal with the federal government looking into your business practices, boy,
Yeah.
I would be nervous if I was Uber or Lyft, just because we know their reputation and how they have tried to maximize everything on the business side and harm the worker really in any way that they can. That's been their MOs for years and years and years. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're breaking the law, but it could.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'd be worried if I were them.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm like I said, the plot keeps thickening here with New York City and the lockouts, the pay. I'm sure we'll have more on this probably by next week or the week after. Always something new with these guys. But so that's our stories this week. As usual, Brian, I will give you the final say before we head into the weekend.
Before we go into the weekend here, I just remind everybody that we are ready and available to consult if you find yourself in an accident or injured on the road. Our consultations are always free. You can talk with our lawyers. We'll talk about the insurance claims process, what you're entitled to, medical bills, pain and suffering, loss of normal life, any damage that you sustain due to the accident, we can put money in your pocket for. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Time is of the essence. The claims don't get better if you wait. So LegalRideshare.com has all of our contact information. Please reach out if you need anything at all.
Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.